Hey guys, this is Edie Cay of Paper Lantern Writers. I am coming at you from daylight savings time. Uh, it's rainy and foggy where I am. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but this is just, as they say on the Instagrams, fall vibes. So we're here today with Margaret Pinard. She has a phenomenal new short story collection called Fabled Passages, and we are going to talk to her about so many different things because she has not unlike Liam Neeson, a varied skill set. So, if you haven't heard of her, Margaret Pinard is a historical fiction and fantasy writer based in the Moss Forest known as Portland. Her historical works explore stories of struggle and intrigue in the 19th century, while her latest work, the short story collection Fabled Passages, plays with historical and fantasy genre expectations. Margaret co-founded Jólabókaflóð PDX, an Icelandic-themed indie book festival, and has been a booktuber, authortuber, and blazer since 2020. All right, fantastic. I'm going to welcome on Margaret, and don't forget, if you guys are on Facebook, you can always check in with Restream. Sorry, that was the wrong link. So if you go to chat.restream.io/FBTO, then I will actually be able to see who it is when you're talking to me. I know, that's crazy. All right, here's Margaret. Hello.
Hello, hello.
It's so great to have you on.
Very excited.
Yeah, we're just sort of switching up here because we've been on your shows, and we actually met through Jólabókaflóð, which I sometimes torment other people when I go for appearances and I make them say that in my bio. And they're always like, I can't.
It is sweet revenge. I mean, you can help people sound it out. It's an Icelandic book festival tradition, and it sort of sounds like English roots, right? Yola is for Yule, Boka is for book, and Flood is for flood. It's like a flood of books on Christmas, which, if you're a book lover, what more could you want, right?
The idea that someone would actually, like, the best Christmas present is that you would leave me alone so that I could read.
With books and,
Yay.
I mean, in our case, it's going to be tea, but yeah, hot cocoa for that.
And I did actually make
good.
Oh, it is good?
Good.
Okay.
How's yours?
Mine's good. I feel, I don't know if you ever Professor Elemental has a song "Cup of Brown Joy," which is all about tea, and
I'll have to go look that up.
It's from 15 years ago. It's delightful. It's chap hop, and it is. He says that he wants a cup of tea so strong that the spoon stands straight up, and I'm like, yep, yes, that is basically.
I've heard that saying. Yes.
Yeah, that's how I prefer. Oh, hi, Eva. Yes, Santa drops the books off, takes the fam on vacation. I agree. Couldn't be better. Perfect. But yes, and I actually did make cookies this morning, so some molasses spice cookies to go with mine. So if I'm munching over here, it's because I can't, like, I haven't had the cookie yet, so I'm like staring.
Okay.
Ah. So let's start with Fabled Passages. So it's your short story collection. There it is. It's so pretty. So I had a chance to read this. It kind of, yeah, I know, like, right?
I'm like so much higher than you. How can I even this out? There we go. Things we might have done in the green room beforehand, but we had other stuff to talk about.
It's true, but that's okay. Eva. Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah, so let's talk about Fabled Passages. So you, I have to admit, my favorite story is the one with the brother sister. That is my favorite one.
You are with Barrett in that opinion, then. That's
yeah.
Fascinating to hear people have like definite inclinations. Yeah. Very cool.
That was actually my favorite one. Honestly, I almost wanted I was kind of like upset that it was just a short story. I was like, this feels like you could go so much longer with this. And I because I wanted more of their relationship. I wanted more of this mysterious portal, like their immortality, like all of these things, because you brought up a lot of really interesting concepts, and I feel like when we talk about historical fantasy, it ends up being a lot more like, oh, it's the Battle of Waterloo, but with dragons, or, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, did you feel like you wanted more backstory or more after story?
Both. Like, I felt like I could have just gone much deeper in all directions, really. Like,
Excellent.
yeah.
What I like to hear. Yeah. When I put the collection together, I thought originally I needed more stories, and then I thought, okay, if length doesn't matter, throw that out the window. What's most important is unifying theme for a single author collection. So I tried to pick the ones and weed out a few others that didn't come to the theme that I could see, that I wasn't sure other people would see. So they are pretty varied as stories. And so it's interesting to hear people say, this was my favorite, that was my favorite, because they're definite, like, different feels. But the unifying theme that I saw, and I don't know if this will be reflected in the reader's experience, but was like regret, second chances, other universes, and like the path not taken. So that's kind of what I was playing with in terms of theme. So
I definitely saw the path not taken. That felt very, very true to the stories. Yeah,
mm,
I definitely agree with that, as a reader.
nice.
Yeah, and Eva was asking, do you think you would extend that or any other story into a novel?
I don't know, Eva. So when I was talking with Jenna and I answered this, I said that when I get a story idea, usually it feels like either a short story idea because it's like lightning, or it feels like a novel idea because you have to dig into it and get a lot more substance. Um, so they sort of come in two different, like, I don't know, what are those lightning tubes you used to have at the bank? Vacuum
Oh,
tubes?
yeah, the air, the pneumatic tubes. Yeah, the pneumatic.
Pneumatic, there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
But I don't know if people keep telling me that Cursed Siblings needs more meat on the bones, maybe I'll stretch it out to a novella. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. As long as we still win, it's fine.
Yeah, Eva's got or novella. Yeah, we'll see. Oh, Adam's here. Battle of Waterloo with dragons. Sign me up. As long as we still win. He's from the UK, so.
I was gonna say,
Hmm.
I'm not sure how much I have in the fight. I don't have a dragon in the fight, so to speak. So
Yeah, that could be interesting.
So how did you feel like releasing a short story collection is different than releasing a novel? Because they're different creatures.
Yes. So it was uniquely positioned, right? So I've had 5 novels that I've self-published. One was a mystery, they're all historical. One was a mystery, one was YA, and 3 were sort of straight in the middle of the genre. And so having that experience of that going out into the void and sort of trying to find an audience and doing what I was told in terms of marketing and branding and all that stuff, and then having this weird compulsion to write short stories and get these sort of weird creatures out piecemeal from my soul, it felt like I was less trying to play to a crowd and more just sort of putting something on a table and going, here, do with that what you will. I don't care. And the form probably contributed to that because it was less of a finished, polished project and more of a experimental new venture, varying lengths, varying voices. And so it was, I feel like I was less insecure about whether people liked it. Although an author is always insecure about what someone likes about their work. So yeah. I'll admit that.
Fair, fair. Because that's what I was thinking. It was like,
Yeah, you're always wanting people to like it, but yeah, it just felt more like um it is how it came out. Like they were edited, I got feedback on them. The endings changed, I don't know. Author's note was an interesting thing to do this time that I hadn't done before too. But yeah, a lot of things were different about this release. And so it's going to be an interesting exercise to try to figure out which factor influenced things. Like, was it the ebook only? Was it the having a booktube channel? Was it the historical fantasy jump to the fantasy genre? Was it the short story form? Like, all of these things are going to change how I interact with the readers. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up changing.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Eva is saying, you've mentioned that it's being a bit of an experiment a few times, and I can relate. I can also relate. And can you tell us how the results are looking? So I'm wondering, oh, so Eva, are you mean like results like sales or reviews or
Well,
feelings?
everyone can see. I mean, there's a code that you can take the sales rank and Amazon and put it into a website and get how many copies per day that person is selling.
Oh,
So I don't
I,
want to put that out there.
I did not know that.
Yes, I forget what the site is called, but I'm sure it's readily available. And you can see how many reviews are up there. It's two. One on Amazon, one on Storygraph. So
Sorry,
I,
Greg, right?
I
That's
love those people to bits for putting up those reviews in the first 10 days. That was amazing. Um, but I feel like my publishing journey has brought me to a place of very guarded expectations, where to protect my mental health and my sort of stability from which I create, I have to keep expectations low and just be happy with the fact that I have created, which I think a lot of author tubers are familiar with. So
yes, very
yeah.
much so, very much so. And Eva saying, is this on unlimited also?
No, it is wide. If you are on Kindle Unlimited, you cannot be anywhere else, is my understanding. And so I am definitely not down with that, as the kids
Yeah.
say. And so I found out, as part of the experimental phase, I used a new publisher, an aggregator called Draft to Digital.
Oh yeah.
And so what I did before was publish to Ingram, publish to Amazon, um, and then it sort of worked its way through ebook and physical paperback, both of those ways. And this time I just went through Draft to Digital, just went to ebook, and found that that meant that you couldn't pre-order on Amazon. I don't know how many sales that lost me. We'll never know. Um, but now Apple Books and Amazon Kindle books are about even on sales. So
Oh,
um, that means that Amazon is still like the bulk of the market. Even saying that, though, I wouldn't go Amazon only, because I don't like what they stand for as a company. So
yeah.
can give people options and encourage them to use the diversity of voices in an industry to back off the monopoly.
Yeah. Yeah. For mine, I've always done Amazon, Draft to Digital, and Ingram. That's what I've always done to go wide.
Yeah. I think what I would do next time is Amazon and Draft to Digital, and try out the Draft to Digital print, which is in beta right now.
Right. Yeah. It's brand new. And that's,
Yeah.
yeah. I am not super excited with Ingram right now.
Yeah, I know. It's like we're getting pushed off the cliff of all the different vendors, and it's like, gosh, where am I gonna go? Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
corner. Feel it.
They slashed their customer service. I don't know if it was just their customer service. Ingram slashed a bunch of employees over the pandemic, and then with
Mm,
paper prices rising, like it's gotten both extremely expensive,
right.
takes forever. No one answers an email. Like, it's just ah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Sorry. So Adam has a question here too.
Yeah.
I have often thought about doing a novel set in the 1880s or earlier. Do you have any advice? And how long does the research normally take?
Well, it depends on how well entrenched you are in that era already. Like, I love the 1880s because um, the costumes, I shouldn't call them costumes, the dress of the age is just marvelously ridiculous, and my eye has always been attracted to it. But I've also read a lot of fiction set then, historical fiction, and Edith Wharton was writing a little bit later, but about that era. And so that was always very entertaining to hear about the society of old New York.
Mhm.
And so I would be pretty facile about starting a manuscript in the 1880s, like the one I did in 2013, which is the historical mystery. But I got things wrong in that. I mean, I'm sure I did with my first project. How long would the research usually take? It depends on how focused you want it to be on the period. If you want it to be, for example, a historical romance where you're basically taking a story that everyone can relate to in any time period and putting it in a certain decade, you would want things like language to be on cue. You would want things like clothing to be on cue. You would want things like class issues, I think, to be on cue isn't a phrase. What am I looking for? Like on
Um,
something. There's a different phrase I'm trying to use.
yeah.
Yeah. On the mark, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you weren't,
Yeah, I was
if you wanted to expand more into like what is happening in the setting and the age, what political turmoil is there? Who are the politicians that are putting forward reforms? You know, who is getting fired from a certain industry, all these things, then you would have to do a lot more in depth. Welcome to my bookcase of research books, which are 3 of them around me right now. So yeah, then that would take months and months, I would say.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
your experience?
Yeah. Like, I do think it also depends on which area of the world you are talking about. Like, if it's your own area of the world, then it's a lot easier, I think, because you can walk around and be like, "Oh, that building was there during the 1880s, so at least I can look at this and be like, oh, here it is."
Right,
Whereas if it's, across the world, then it becomes more challenging.
right, right.
Oh, and Eva is
Point.
saying slang, hot topics, realistic financial situations, traditions, etc.
Yes, yes.
etc. Yeah, totally agree. So I would love to talk about AuthorTube. So tell me more. Tell me more about this.
Time for the tea. No, I'm just kidding.
Time to spill the tea.
Yeah. So AuthorTube is a tiny, tiny slice of YouTube. I was just listening to some podcasts earlier today about social media and Twitter and how Twitter is a tiny slice of the social media pie, whereas YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world after Google. So it's owned by Google. So if you think of this huge landscape, right, the size of the earth, and you think of AuthorTube, AuthorTube is like, I don't know, Guam. Like it's tiny in this in the, in the idea of the world, right? And so a lot of people know each other. There's still a lot of people. So there's different like pools and corners and rooms that you can wander into and through. And it can be delightful. It can also be like a school. There can also be people that you don't get along with, or people from the other side of the aisle, or genres that you're not into, or formats that you don't really like watching. So like, if their videos are not your thing, then like even if you're in the same genre, you'd be like, well, maybe I don't want to subscribe to them. So it's a big pool within a big pool. And I sort of started off in BookTube, reading books, reviewing books, doing readathons, doing tags, and then discovered that there's an AuthorTube like a year in, and got more into that. And so started getting to know people, and then started doing author panels, interviewing authors. And it's my primary social media interaction. Yeah, 2 to 3 times a week I put out videos, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. And Nano is a big month. So yeah, it's busy this month. And yeah, people put a lot of effort into connecting, and people are very vulnerable sometimes. And so there's a lot to be appreciated about the connections that you can make on AuthorTube. It's just like being in school, though. Like you gotta find your people.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting too.
And because I was thinking I couldn't read the dialogue that you put up at the same time. So
Yeah. Well, Eva was having some good sentiments that were very
Oh,
appropriate in this. She was basically saying a lot of the same things you were, and it was just this lovely like mesh. I don't know. I don't know. My brain does that thing where I can listen to two separate things at the same time and still process both of them. Just
yeah.
like, well, so
Nice.
sometimes I forget that not everyone's brain is weird like mine is, and
I
that's
had real trouble in music classes in college when you had to do two different beats at the same time with your hands. And I was like, I'm not getting this. This is like factorials. I'm not getting the math.
see. I was actually a professional musician by training, so I was a classical musician. That was what I did for a living.
Yeah. Well
So
done.
that's, yeah, just can't help it.
Skills.
Skill.
Liam needs some skills. We all have our own skills to bring to the table. Yeah, Adam was pointing out that we do karaoke as an AuthorTube community, and that's something that like I brought to the table and Barrett Laurie joined in on. He is a wonderful AuthorTuber who has like what people were calling him the fairy godfather of AuthorTube because he's just such an embraceable, lovable person who does the vulnerability thing and talks to people like with his whole heart out there. It's great.
Wow.
But we do once a month AuthorTubers host karaoke where we switch channels and host people who want to sing because it's the pandemic and where are you going anyway? You're an author. So yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, Eva does that too. Well, you guys are talented. Yeah, talking and listening at the same time. I mean, I think I can do it sometimes, but I might not be able to and just think I can. We'll see.
There you go. Well, also, I got a 5-year-old, so there's a lot of talking at me while I'm doing a lot of different things. And so, you have to be able to parse this part while doing your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, that sounds like a really excellent community. And I have to say I should be a part of it, but I am still very firmly entrenched in my Gen X ideas of like, I am probably not going to participate in something that would welcome me. So why?
That's not Gen X. That's Oscar Wilde, isn't it?
It's actually Groucho Marx. This is what I'm.
Okay, Groucho Marx. Similar vibe to me. Different century, similar vibe. Got it.
Yeah. I'm not good at participating in things. I will say that. So, but I will do my best. Oh, Eva, we're the same person, Eva. Like, there it is. She also has an almost 5-year-old at home.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should be friends, Eva. We should be friends. So, can we go back to this whole idea of genre? So I'm like intensely interested in this because there are some aspects of genre that I love and some aspects that I hate. And I'm curious, do you have any expectations of straight historical fiction that you think are out there? Or I would love to hear your thoughts on what genre actually is with historical fiction, because it is this broad idea.
Right. It can go from dragons at Waterloo to ghosts in Rome, So this is a great question because Paper Lantern Writers is firmly ensconced in the historical fiction of many different subgenres. And when I sort of started in historical fiction and then made this leap into historical fantasy, what I did with the short stories was sort of still instinctually going to the eras that I'm familiar with or like the settings that I feel are compelling for some reason. And, some of those are in nature, some of those are in London, some of those are in my hometown. So whatever the idea was, it came with its own dictated setting. And for some reason, those were in history, probably because like I live in the past in my head, right? As many historical fiction authors do. So when I think about expectations for historical fiction, there's not much, right? HNS, Historical Novel Society, teaches us it's 50 years in the past, so it's more research-based than it is memory-based, and that's basically the only requirement. Um, and so so you can do a lot of other things thrown in, right? You can throw in mystery, you can throw in romance, you can throw in detectives, you can throw in supernatural beings. I feel like it's a huge field and it's very forgiving. So my expectations for it are pretty loose because, as I was saying to Adam earlier, like you can be very loosey goosey, easy with your definition of historical accuracy and sort of place something somewhere for the feel, for the vibe. Or you can be extremely detail oriented and get, the songs that were played on the radio right. And there's the whole gamut in between. So I have very few expectations for historical fiction as a genre. How would you approach that question?
Well, so I'm reading a book right now that it's one of those things that I am aware of it just because I'm an author, and I don't know if other readers would get pulled out for the same things. Like I'm very aware of like foods that are New World foods, alcohols that are New World alcohols. So if you have someone drinking rum in Tudor era England, I'm a little like, you better have a real good explanation how that got there.
There's some side eye going on. Yes. Yeah.
And like, I'm willing to cut you a break because maybe you know something that I don't know, but I'm going to expect to see that in the author's note. Whereas at the same time, there was a Lisa Kleypas book. I think it was Lisa Kleypas. And she had, it was very much a Cinderella-esque story, romance. And it had pumpkins, and it was very much the Cinderella story that we remember from Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the back, her author's note was like, "Before you come for me." And it was like a bullet list of pumpkins were grown in France in this year in like 1720. And I set my book in 1830 or whatever it was. And she just like,
oh yeah, it was a good soup. Yep.
And was like, "This is accurate. This is accurate. This is accurate. So before you come for me, here we go."
Right.
And
know some things. Yeah.
yeah. And that's how I often approach my author notes as well, where it's like, okay, hey, before you come at me with "that's not a thing," let me tell you what was a thing. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of historical fiction, like I do expect some degree of accuracy, and I do expect in your historical note at the end to tell me what part did you make up, so that I know, coming from my little nerdy historical self, where I'm like, what is the stuff that you learned that's true, and what's the stuff that you made up to entertain me?
Right. Right.
So, because there are some things that I completely agree, like that there are some truths that are weirder than fiction, and you couldn't write that as a book because no one would believe you.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I put something in my last historical fiction book, Stormwrack and Spindrift. I put something in that was an actual recorded fact about someone who had an old house in Western Scotland, and it was cheaper to blow it up with old cannons than it was to rehabilitate it. And so he was like the crazy landowner who was not taking care and like shot at his own house. And that was sort of a commentary on like the people who were working on the land nearby and how careless he was and this sort of thing. So I was ready for people in the note about that one. I was like, this is where you can find it. Yeah, that was definitely satisfying to have so outlandish a fact be like documented on the museum website and everything. That was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Eva has actually a two-parter here. She is saying, I have a project that covers the 1960s to 90s from an adult POV with the same character's child POV covering the 50s a bit. Does that stay historical even with 80s and 90s? And then her two-part here, should I market it as historical when a lot of the details are given to me by a source who lived in the times, so they may not be mainstream historical realities? Ooh, mainstream historical realities is an interesting phrase.
Hmm.
And I, for some reason, felt like I was on Schitt's Creek there for a minute. I was channeling Mora.
So I would ask, like, where percentage-wise of the novel, and if you don't have it complete yet, maybe you don't know, but, like, if 70% of the novel is in that 50s, 60s, 70s, and you're sort of looking back to draw the lessons or, like, connect the dots when the adult is coming back to revisit the scenes or narrate the ending, um, then I would say it's mostly historical and you could market it as such. But if it's like someone who you're in the moment with and it's like talking about their life and it's less 50s and 60s and it's more 90s, then I would probably go with more literary or um, creative nonfiction if you're actually basing it on someone's life and experiences. What do you think?
Yeah, and she's also saying, for example, she didn't have experience indoor plumbing until 1960. Her
Oh,
family had
okay.
a dragon, but she rode a yellow school bus to school, things like that.
Not mainstream historical realities. So
I
not mainstream of the time. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like everybody's an individual, right? And that's essentially what you're doing when you write any book. I mean, I don't know if Margaret, if you have another opinion on that one, but I mean, when you talk about individual characters, you're talking about their specific experiences, and the beauty of writing is that then the reader is able to draw back and use those as universal truths. But you are still being very, very specific about that person's experiences.
Hmm.
So, Eva saying not close enough for creative, but I do agree that it doesn't quite feel historical.
Hmm.
And she lived in rural Iowa, just not as much of the population lived that life, which is totally fine.
Looks
I
like
mean,
you're gonna have to get a beta reader, Eva.
and I would market it. I mean, if the yeah, I agree with what you said, Margaret. Like if it's mostly the 50s, 60s, 70s, then that's historical. So you could market it that way. Or you could
Right.
just say like, or if it's a dual timeline, then it's that.
Right.
What's
That has
happening
its
in the
own
80s versus
adherence, yeah.
yeah.
And if you're already stepping out of the story to ask how you would categorize it or market it or shelve it or whatever, then you're probably at the place where you can uh, look at the voice, look at the mood, and look at who reads that. So if it's dual timeline, there's an audience for that. If it's 50s and 60s, there's an audience for that. If it's someone goes through their whole life, like that's not me, but there's an audience for that. I don't know what it's called. um, I know there are examples of that I have come up against, and I
Yeah,
can't think of them right now, of
I
course.
can't think of
But
there's a genre name for it though. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, if there's a genre name for it.
it makes me think of like John Irving and Ann Patchett, like people who just like spend a lot of time with the whole life to give you a whole picture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would call that. Yeah, that's. So if we could keep kind of trucking along here. So you and I both met at Yola Bookafod, and I am curious. You have some more conference making happening. So I'm curious about how you feel about going to conferences and putting on conferences, and it's this huge aspect of organization. So can you speak to how much work that it takes? Because it seems like it would be a lot.
Yeah. So, how much time? How much tea do you have? Um, I like organizing. And I think like early on from an academic career to my first professional job, I not conferences, but meetings. Like I organized meetings with stakeholders. And so the detail oriented piece of it where you were focusing on how are they going to get there? What are they going to expect? Where are they going to stay? What kind of talks are people going to want? Like how are you going to facilitate decision making by having time off and free time, and when do people want to get up, and to the point of like how much do we have to spend on the freaking coffee in the morning, like this type of detail, right? Yes, when I was working in DC that was important. But after that life, when I've been writing and publishing, um, it's the same skill. It's organizing. It's foreseeing complications and needs and trying to meet those needs ahead of time by planning. And I like doing that. The conference part, I don't really like that word. It sounds very formal. I feel like we just want to have it be something like retreat or get together or Lollapalooza. I don't know, something fun, right? Conference sounds so formal and like in a air conditioned too much hotel.
Fair.
So yeah, the first one. So the reason Yellow Book of Flood came about in Portland is that we had always had a Portland book festival down in the Pioneer Square. And the lady who'd done that for like 10 years was like, I'm done. This is too much work and it's not worth it anymore. I'm getting too old. And so there was no one to pick that up and run with it. Someone did after a year of it being off, but it was not the same. And so all of us like indie authors who were like, I can pay $50 for a table, but I can't pay $500 for the Wordstock thing. We were kind of in a slump and being like, well, what are we supposed to do? And so that's when I was like, we have to do something. So I sort of brought a fun idea for a party and put it together with like what indie authors would be able to pay for. And from that, the festival was born. So it's finding the need, anticipating it, and meeting what people want in a fun way. That is ideally what a conference is for me. You asked about this beforehand, so I have a link ready, but I'll
Yeah.
pop it in the chat on YouTube.
Yes.
Because Yule Book Afloat is no more, but I'm helping out with the AuthorTube Writing Conference in my new community, and that is with Esty Houston. She is the starter and engine and detail-oriented one in this partnership, but I am helping. Let me pop it in here. This year, the last festival or conference, I did a talk on organizing for successful virtual community events, which is like a conference. So if you're interested, I have lots of points that I will not go over but ask you to watch. Yeah, so that's the goal. That's why I like doing it. That's the skill set that I bring to it. And that's what I'm working on for next year. We've got author tubers lining up December 1. The application's open for talks for that venue, which person gives on their own channel, and they're part of like the schedule that we all put together and the playlists and everything. So it's gonna be awesome.
Very cool. That is very cool. Yeah, well, I look for, and I'm sorry, say those dates one more time. Do you have a date?
So applications open December 1st, and the conference itself is June. It's the middle of June. It's the weekend in the middle of June. I will open up my calendar because I forgot the dates. Hold on. Shannon's like, oh my goodness, you don't have those stamped on your soul yet. Well, no, unfortunately not. So June 2023. Isn't it in June? There it is. 23rd, 24th, 25th of June, 2023. There we go.
Oh, right. Yeah. And so it's AuthorTube conference, and do you guys have any other theme that you guys are exploring on this? Is it?
So Shannon did not set up a theme for the first one because everything was new for her, right? But she had a writing track and a publishing track. So people came up with their own pitches, their own ideas. They applied to give a talk. They were reviewed. She cat herded people along with Jenna, the soul writer, O'Malley, and they produced a wonderful conference this year. So the next year, she sort of upped the ante by giving it a theme, and that is technology.
Ooh.
So since we're on a YouTube channel, it's pretty appropriate. Although all the writers are kind of like, technology, how do I use technology? Because like it's so ingrained in our souls at this point. We're like, I don't know. I'm half bionic woman. What do you mean? But yes, that will be the theme in 2023. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Sorry, I'm writing this down too, and just it's all good to know.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So do you have any talks that you're going to give at this one? or are you just going to be part of the running of it?
I have a slot that I need to fill with an idea, and Shannon keeps asking me, and I keep going, I don't know. I've been through about 16 ideas so far, and none of them feel good enough. So, yeah, we were talking a little bit before we went live about like you've got to judge your success by the effort you put out and the quality that you produce rather than the views or the likes or whatever. And so I think this is one of those areas where I'm holding back a little and being like, it's not good enough. Like the effort is not, it's not going to be an attractive topic. And so I keep second guessing myself. We'll see. We'll see. I'll come up with something.
We'll get there. I'm positive you'll get there, and it'll be great. It'll be great.
Thanks.
So, do you have anything right now that you are reading that you are enjoying? Do you like any short stories because of your short story collection, or are you back into novels, or what are you reading right now?
Well, I was just reading Eva's comments. It sounds like house management, gross, similar
Yeah.
to motherhood, but with adults, which is way worse. I was laughing. So right now, as a booktuber, I am reading all the books. I'm rereading Laurie R. King right now, who's an excellent historical mystery writer.
Yeah.
And for nonfiction November, I'm reading, what am I reading? Where did I put those books? I don't even know. I'm like, they're not in my stack here. They're not in my stack there. And I just talked about them a week ago. That's fine. That's fine. It's in a video. You can look it up. But so nonfiction November and Skoden, which is a readathon for reading Indigenous literature. So those are the two focuses of November, and that's pretty fabulous. A lot of people combine them, so that was part of my goal as well. But I did just read, because we were all on a panel together, Unlocked, the anthology from Paper Lantern Writers, and Leah's book, which is Shoot the Horses First. So short story collections. I'm warming to them, having now written one of my own.
I actually still have my stack of short story collections right here from when I was on yours. So I actually wrote a blog post about this. This is The Elephant Vanishes by her.
Oh, yes.
So
you had warmly recommended that one.
Yeah, it's super good. And I also have 10 Little Indians by Sherman Alexie, which is a good one. Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri, which is, I gotta say, also a breathtaking collection. Highly recommend on this one. One of my absolute favorites. Here's a weird one that came out through City Lights. So this is back in the day before you could self-pub, and so you could go through little bookstores. So City Lights is the bookstore in San Francisco.
Yes.
The Celibacy Club. And in this one, she has a short story where she basically has an affair with her stationary bicycle at the gym.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Right.
Sure. And
then, interesting.
Yeah. And then this one by Pam Houston, Cowboys Are My Weakness.
Oh, nice. That's on my list to read. I haven't read it yet. Apparently it's life-changing. So the thing that took up my whole day, 11 hours in front of the computer, was producing the Sanibel Island Writers Conference. And Pam Houston was the keynote speaker at the end of the day. And I was supposed to be off, like, taking a break. And I couldn't, because she and Jenna Blum were, like, talking and dropping gems. And I was like, oh, my God, yes. Talked a lot about state of the world today and how writers cope and, you know, why our stories are worth telling. And it was really good. So I just put that playlist on my channel as well, in case anyone is looking for it. There were some really good panels yesterday.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what is a way that people cope? I mean, other than alcohol, I'm not really sure how people cope these days.
Community. That's it. You find your community, right? So whether it's AuthorTubers on YouTube, or it's historical fiction writers in Northern California, or, you know, extended family in the area that you can actually see in person.
Yeah.
People have different ways to, like, retain connection to the ground and feeling like they're useful and feeling like they matter. And I feel like any way to do that is valid, right? Yeah. Reading.
Eva, we
Yeah.
need to be friends.
Yep. Escapism. Just not too much. Like we
Just
do
not too
want
much.
you here on the earth, right? Don't escape too far.
Yeah, the new word for that, I feel like, is disassociation. Like, are you disassociating? Like,
But I mean, when I think about that, that's a clinical psychological term, right?
yeah, I think so.
Dissociation. So I feel like I'm hesitant to appropriate clinical psychological terms for feelings that everyone is having, because I feel like that's a line that will bring me into conflict with people who are challenged in a way that I am not, and belittle their experiences. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's making the word milder than it actually is.
right.
When it's used in
So I'm trying to be careful with, like, yeah, what everyone is saying on Twitter is not necessarily what I want to say in serious conversation.
Oh, so speaking of Twitter, can we talk about Twitter right now?
Yeah, that's what I was listening to earlier.
So how are you feeling about Twitter? I feel like I feel like my timeline changed. Like, I don't see my normal people. Like, I don't see all of the same authors that I've kind of built this community around. And so I'm kind of like, did they leave, or do I just not see them anymore? And yeah, I mean, how are you feeling?
So I follow a lot of people, and if I want to see just writers, I will go to the list I've made of, like, historical fiction writers or author tubers or non YouTube authors or social media mavens, like people I know from different corners of the author world. And that has definitely changed. I know people who have left. So when 2016 happened, I did the find a different phone texting app instead of the ones that could be monitored, because we were all scared. And I didn't use that. I did the encrypted email, and I didn't use that. And now I've gone on to counter.social. I followed Susanna Kearsley there because she announced it and left, and I was like, there's no one. I don't know how to follow people here. It was one of those, like, I don't want to go up the learning curve again, and that's just laziness.
Yeah, that's
So
kind
I'm
of
still on.
too.
Yeah, I'm still on Twitter, but I'm reading the articles about what may happen so that I'm informed about, like, what am I seeing and what does it mean? How is it filtering down to my timeline? I mean, I'm not verified. I don't have a blue check. I'm not gonna be paying anybody. If I start getting bots in my account, like they predict is going to happen, if you're not paying people, then yeah, then I am limited to a much smaller circle of people who I can email or go to their blogs or go to their YouTube channels. So yeah, it does close the world in a little bit if you don't have the Twitter playground, but there are other playgrounds.
Yeah, I've been reading about Mastodon.
Yep, that's the other big one. I've been hearing more about that than Counter Social.
Yeah, and I've been hearing about Counter Social. I know a couple of authors who have left for Counter Social. I haven't really, I don't know. I'm lazy. Yes, I'm lazy, and I don't. Yeah, got so many other things going on.
Thing that was pointed out this morning is that the changes that Elon Musk and others are thinking of making, one, he's trying to do things for his right-wing friends, is one way of looking at it, but the other is, like, more neutrally, he is someone who is addicted to Twitter, so he has assumptions he makes about what people will do to stay on the platform, whereas the rest of the world is like, this is a tiny pinch, like, go have it, who cares?
Yeah.
So if you can pull back enough to see, like, there are other playgrounds, I think we'll be fine. We just need to, I don't know, figure out where everyone's going.
That is really what it comes down to, is like, I just want to be where the community is. Like, I don't really care what platform it is, but as long as I can interact and see, like, Ms. Bev spitting her truths and, see Tessa Dare drinking a bottle of wine and tweeting while she's half-heartedly watching a Dodgers game. Like, that's That's why I'm on Twitter. Like, the other things are fun too, but, it's that level of interaction that I enjoy being able to, like, interact with these bigger authors than I am and have them, I don't know, talk to me, yeah. Instead of, having to go to a conference. I know, are you reading Eva's comments?
Yes. Oh my god, what? Okay. Yeah, Eva's been having issues way before the switch over last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. YouTube is broadening to incorporate social media use without being big. Rumors say you don't even need content to get a community tab, though so far I disprove this. Yeah. And yeah, the people I was listening to this morning on Cricket Media were talking about YouTube as a social media platform. And I'm like, but you still can't DM. To me, that says it's not social. It's more about content that's one-to-one. You can comment on a video, that's one creator to one, commenter. You can't do things in private. It's all public. You have to go somewhere else if you want to do something like together,
Yeah.
unless you come on the channel. So I don't know. There's lots of, yeah, if they add DMs to YouTube, then it would be like all YouTube isn't, besides shorts, they're not doing anything to incorporate all the other social media platforms like every other platform is. So that's why I feel like they're on their own solid ground and stable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. This landscape is definitely changing, and I'll be curious to see how it kind of settles out.
You want a cameo?
Yeah, let's see. Who do we have?
Doesn't move here.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Wow.
He's looking at me like, obviously I'm late doing something. So yeah. Why is AuthorTube on YouTube? Search engine, yes. No pre-recorded Twitch content. Oh. Yeah, the difference between YouTube users and Twitch users. It's basically the same, but they have a different structure set up for monetization.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that
And they're owned by different monopolies. So take your pick.
Yeah. Well, so kind of getting back to this, this is basically our last question here. Here we go. We're at the end.
Oh no, that flew by.
I know. See, that's why this is just fun to just have chats. So what would you like? What is your next like career goal that you would like to check that box? Like you would feel like a success. Like, do you have any other goals in mind where you're like, yes, that is my next one. That is what I'm going after next.
Let's see. See if we can
Read local.
backwards. Yeah, we've got support local artists, buy a local artist, and then read local. So those are like the main goal, right? The book festival was about that. The AuthorTube conference is about that. The going wide publishing is about that. The working at an indie bookstore is about that. I don't have a next like target goal in mind in terms of meeting this goal, but it's going to be continuing to diversify the viewpoint and incorporate more perspectives in my writing. I know what my next project is going to be. Excuse me. It's a novella for an earlier series. It's going to be a prequel. But after that, I don't know. It's a good question. I should have an answer.
Well, what is the prequel for? Of these are your books that you have out.
Yes.
So what is the novella? Which one is that going for?
So it's going to be a prequel for the trilogy of The Keening, The Grasping Root, and Stormrock and Spindrift. So that's like 1822, 1824, 1830. So this is going to be 1811. This is going to be like the previous generation and how they fed into The Keening. So, yeah.
Oh, and Eva says Stormrack.
She's going to go through them backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eva had a question earlier about reading short stories in order.
Yeah.
Um, Usually I do. For Unlocked, I started in the middle. I don't know why. But yeah, usually I would start at the beginning.
Yeah, same. Unless someone has like specifically recommended like a specific story out of there. If they're like, no, 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 this one is amazing, then I'll do that.
Mm,
Yeah, I always read in order.
yeah. Sometimes it's dangerous to do that though, because if that's the best story in the collection and you start with it and you're just gonna be disappointed. So like who I can't remember what author I was thinking about a while ago, and it was something like this book is a lot better. So if you're gonna read all the works, read this one first so that you build up and you appreciate the growth. Um I can't remember, but yeah, I don't know. It
Yeah,
could hit everyone differently because, readers are individuals and they'll have different reading experiences for
that's
sure.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, is there anything that you would like to put here at the end? Any last words?
Last words. What do you want on your tombstone? um, well, since this goes out to your people on the Facebook group that you
Mhm.
guys have, that is an audience that I don't normally have. So I'll say, here's my sales pitch to come over on YouTube.
Yeah.
My channel is just my name, Margaret Pinard, so I'm very easy to find. And I can show you how to start a channel if you're an author who maybe is not satisfied with your current author platform and you want to find out how to start a channel. Hop on YouTube. I've got a whole playlist of how to stream. I've got lots of content to give you ideas. So yeah, Margaret Pinard on YouTube, and check out Fabled Passages, latest release. That's all I got.
Yay. I can't believe I didn't have one ready for your YouTube. I have one ready for Instagram, and I have
I
one
got it.
ready
I got it.
for Twitter.
There we go.
Um, there you go. Yeah. And let's see, do it. Yeah, and you've got uh, Fabled Passages is your latest right there. And you don't have to buy it on Amazon. You can buy it somewhere else.
Yes. There's like 8 different places, including Australia and Canada and different ebook purveyors. So only ebook, unfortunately. Shannon and Eva have both let me know their preferences on that. I do like having a paperback, but we already talked about the Ingram difficulties, and so I thought I'd see what this did. So you gotta experiment sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, paper is expensive these days. It's hard.
I'd rather have the trees, So all in all, that's a good move for me. And I like Eva's suggestion: be wild, buy it everywhere.
Oh. Woo! Woo! All right. Well, thank you so much, Margaret, for coming on the show, and thank you, Eva, actually, for all of your comments as well. It's been really lovely to chat with you, and I guess I can't wait to see you on AuthorTube somewhere.
Yay! Thank you so much, Edie. This is great.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you in June, certainly at the conference.
Yes, yes. All right, guys, thank you so much. It has been a lovely hour, and thank you on your daylight savings time here. Just want to say once again, you can pick up Fabled Passages on anywhere, and Unlocked by Paper Lantern Writers, of course, you can pick that up on Amazon. Paperback is everywhere, and I will see you next time. Have a lovely, lovely